In the line, acted by the Green Bay meeting number 9. We're grateful to have the opportunity to make decisions at this table that will impact our community, me which I will turn over to Bob for a preamble, please.
For transparency, I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded in accordance with the municipality procedures. In the event of emergency, please exit quietly this room and use the room door.
We open our meeting with the resolution 2026-180. Here we go. At this council meeting come to order at 6 p.m. President Mayor Tekola, Councilor Tozer, Councilor Ryder, Councilor Hunter, Council Nackerty. Hey, we got a full council today. All right, there's no further questions or anything. I will ask if we're ready to vote on this. All in favor? Carried. Meeting officially open. Thank you very much.
Six number 2026-181, be it resolved that agenda BM7 is presented / amended.
I guess on that other one, I should ask for a mover and seconder. Sorry.
Oh.
I did not do that. I got ahead of myself. We're opening the meeting. Please. Is that it? I'm going to ask for a mover, please. Susan, seconder, Carmen. And moved by Susan Hunter, seconded by Carmen Tozer. Okay. We're all present. So I'd ask for a vote. So I've asked for the vote again. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Just to clarify, I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. So resolution 2026-181. Yes, I'll read it just to make quick clarification again so that this resolution reads, be it resolved that the agenda be accepted as presented / amended. Could I have a mover, please? Diane, seconder, Sabian. Moved by Diane Ryder, second by Sabian Nackerty. Are there any changes to the agenda? I don't see any, so we'll accept it as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Pecuniary interest, if there are any pecuniary interest disclosed at the time, please disclose them. If not, at any time during the meeting, if you see where you have missed one, you want to disclose it at that time, feel free to do so. Right, there's none, I see. Move on to adoption, number 4, adoption of regular meeting, number 1926, July 14th. Please, Bob.
Resolution 2026 number 2026-182, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Moosonee adopt the minutes of the regular meeting number 18-2026 of July 14th, 2026 as presented / amended.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Second.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I can't hear you there. No, we got nothing on our end.
Okay.
A little bit better, intermittent.
Slow down then. Okay, we're going to the 24 audit with Tiffany, Megan. So we will turn it over to Tiffany, and they are from KPMG, they're our auditors. We all have a copy in front of us.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
As we can.
Okay. And Joel, was there anything you wanted to jump in at the start, or maybe just jump in at the end with any comments on your side?
Sure, yeah, I can jump in at the end.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So I know that Joel had made sure that you all had a copy of the package in your a copy of the statements and the audit findings report in your package. So I know that you do already have this, but I'm just going to share my screen because I do find it a little bit easier for us all to follow along. I'm not going to go through kind of each part of the audit findings report. There's some considerations with respect to, you know, audit planning considerations and very typical risk assessments that we need to do for any audit. And I just think at this point, I think what you all are very interested in is let's talk about the numbers. And let's, you know, talk about the elephant in the room. You'll see a few, we call them internal control improvements or specific topic items as to why, you know, somebody might say, well, it's 2024 statements and we're in 2026. How did we get here and what's the reason for that? So do just want to talk through a few of those things with everybody if that works. So I think
Tiffany, it's Wayne.
Yeah.
When you're referring to, could you refer to the page number so we can all be on the same page number?
Yes, absolutely. So
Thank you.
I'm fairly certain that where we're first going to start is in the findings, and that would start on it. So it's page 15 on the bottom right-hand corner of the report. Okay.
Good.
Looks like everybody has flipped over to there. So as auditors, there's a few required communications that we would have. We call them specific topics. So as counsel, what I would describe them best as items that you should need to be aware of as you are ultimately approving the financial statement. So if there were items that in the completion of our audit, maybe we were, you know, there's some documents that management has said, we'd rather you not, you know, confirm those balances, or we'd rather you not do that. We do have to let you know about it. There's nothing like that you should know. You can see no matters to report with respect to any correspondence with management, no, you know, significant contentious type of matters, or any disagreements with management. Though you will see a fairly large, and sorry, I flipped to page 17 on the bottom right-hand corner. And I would suggest that this is kind of the crux of why we are where we are and why it did take an extended period of time to complete the audit. So I'm sure that as council members, a lot of you are aware that you had some good success over the last number of years in accessing certain funding pockets, so the ICIP funding arrangements through the federal government to fund some of your capital projects. So obviously this is a great thing for the town. You're having the ability to have some additional government funding to facilitate some capital work that you've been looking at doing. But the thing about ICIP is it's very much claims-based funding. So you spend the money on the projects. There's always a certain amount that needs to be contributed from the town, and then you would submit the claim based on the spending that you've incurred on the projects. And the town had, I would say, maybe a few vacancies, we'll call it, in certain key positions over the last number of years. So I would say it was kind of a combination of two things. So number one, the claims were not being submitted to the funding agencies on a timely basis. And the way that these claims work, you need to spend the money. So you have to pay your suppliers, and then you have to wait to get the money back from the federal government after you submit the claims for the funding agreements. So effectively what that means is, thank goodness the town is in a decent cash flow position, because you were having to significantly fund those capital purchases with your own internal cash flows until you were waiting for the funds to come back from the federal government. The other little nuance is while it was very clear for us to be able to go through the general ledger details to say, okay, these are all of the spending that you did on any capital project throughout 2024. Where it became a bit more problematic, we'll call it, is to say which ones management had decided were going to be claimed through the various ICIP projects. And so as auditors, what we want to make sure isn't happening is that we don't want to record a receivable because let's say we as auditors think, well, that actually is eligible costs associated with that one funding stream. And then ultimately management doesn't submit a claim with that amount in it because we will have been in a situation where we have an overstatement of accounts receivable. And then in a subsequent year, all you have to do is be then writing that off. And that would then impact your deficit in the year. So because of the significance of these three funding streams, we were incredibly hesitant to issue anything until, thankfully, it's like the knight in shining armor. Joel came in and had said, okay, we need to be getting in contact with the federal government. And that was, I think, where the game changer was, being able to have that access with the federal government, what claims had been submitted, what cash flow had been received. And we were ultimately then able to cobble together a combination of all of the claims that had been submitted up to 2024, claims that had been made subsequent to year end, for all of us to feel extremely comfortable that the receivable outstanding at the end of 2024 was ultimately correct. And so, of course, we do have some recommendations. We've went through this with Joel already. I think he's on board given his past experience in similar roles. Is these claims, they need to be tracked and accumulated and submitted on a quarterly basis. Just because cash flow is good right now, doesn't mean cash flow would always be good. And I hate the fact that the town is needing to use up that much of your own kind of funds while you're waiting on those federal government amounts to be claimed and then ultimately deposited. I completely understand. There was a little bit of a rotating door, we'll call it, with the various positions being vacant. So hopefully if you're, having a little bit more stability in some of the roles, this will be a bit easier to get any of those claims submitted. But I did think it was important for all of us to have a conversation because if I were in your shoes, the first thing I would be asking is, why are we here in July of 2026 and talking about 2024 numbers? And so that is the crux of a material amount in the financial statements, having insufficient audit evidence up until the last, I would say, month, as we got things done. So perhaps I'll pause for a second because I've laid on a lot of a lot there. Joel, if there's anything you want to jump in and clarify or mention as well, and of course give council a chance to ask any questions on that.
Yeah, I'll just jump in at the start and then council give me questions or comments. I'll just take the screen sharing away from you for a second, Tiffany. So one of the things that I've done to try to improve this process is since I came on board, I've created this folder now just so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. So in our town folder, I've created a new subfolder, treasurer. And every topic is something that I manage, I've got a subfolder for it. So you can see there's a subfolder just for grants. And then here's all of our ongoing grant programs that we have as a town. And everything related to that grant in particular would be in that grant program. Even if it was an application we applied for, get denied for. We applied for funding for the town fire years ago, got denied. Everything's in here. Similarly, with the ISIP grants, what I've done as well, it's just created this summer where we had 3 different streams of funding. We had this rural and northern stream, a green stream 1, and a green stream 2. And you can see even just in the GL accounts here that we were using where we were recording the money for the last couple of years, we've kind of bumped around. We put it here, no, we put it here, no, we put it here. It's just, it wasn't consistent, right? So just trying to come up with seeing that history. So when I create a new grant going forward, we get approved for, I'll create one account, make sure the account is used from beginning to end. So when we go to report on it, you can see where we're at with every grant. Now, thankfully, ISIP was able to give us this information. So you can see here, the rural and northern grant, for example, we got approved for 2.6 million, 2.4 of that they're going to cover, 176 grand we're going to cover. And then here's all the individual claims we've submitted. Here's the total expenditures we still have left to claim, $33,000, of which they would rebate us $684,000. So it's just all very meticulously laid out so we know where we're at with each grant. So when we speak to the budget, which we spoke to the last two meetings, I can say like, hey, here's the grant expenditures we're going to have and the rebates we're going to get. That's where a lot of this is coming from. This is the support. I know we have this much more funding available to claim as rebatable expenses through these different programs. And we've got, like I said, all three of them all kind of laid out. Just very clear process, which we just didn't have good record keeping documentation. It was kind of very fragmented before. I think it was all there. Not to point fingers at other people. I think it was all there, just wasn't organized as efficiently as it could be. So now we've got a better centralized system to speak to addressing this kind of issue that Tiffany's talking about. Because yeah, the cash flow, ultimately we do get the money back, but we want to keep it in our pockets because we earn interest on the money. We don't want to be shelling it out and then waiting 6 months or a year to get the money back to us. That's my 2 cents addition to her very thorough explanation. I'll open it up now to council if you have any questions about what we're talking about thus far.
Questions, I guess it's just, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Not really any questions. What's going through my mind is how do we avoid this going forward, right? Yes, we had staff turnover, but we had a consistent treasurer the whole time. And to hear these financial issues now is it's just blowing my mind anyway. So that's my thoughts, is how do we avoid this in the, what do we have to put in as policies, procedures, like how do we avoid this? Because this is serious stuff.
Yeah, I think part of that as well is the turnover in the CAO position during that time, because different CAOs have different mindsets of role accountability and where the role lands. And some CEOs would say, Shelley, you're the treasurer. This is your problem. Some CEOs would say, no, I'm CAO. I want to touch this. Other CEOs would say, whatever department is dealing with the grant, you deal with it. So sometimes you have a Trevor in Public Works and he would kind of manage a grant, but then sometimes Shelley would manage a grant and sometimes the CAO would manage a grant, versus just consistently, if it's a number thing and it's a financial thing, that's the treasurer's problem. The treasurer needs to deal with it. And for as long as I'm here, that's the expectation I have. And if one day I leave here 5-10 years from now, the next treasurer, they should be the person in charge of all the money things. The CEO can know what's going on. The public works manager can give you commentary of why we're applying for this grant and what the benefits are to the town and help fill out the reporting. But in the end, who knows all the money things? The money person, the treasurer. I think that was part of the issue with different CEOs and then not having a CEO for a bit there as well. Some viewed it differently. So sometimes Shelley would have her hand in it. Sometimes they would take it away from her. Sometimes they give it to treasurer, give it back to her. And these grants now going over 3 or 4 years and like you're half in, out. That's where the problem was. So I think just clear role accountability to say, if it's a money thing, the money guy should be in charge of it. That's the treasurer. Other people need to know, they can be CC'd, but the money person is in charge of it. Full stop, end of story. And the council supports that vision. So council says, hey, we need something. Council doesn't say, hey, could the fire chief get us this? Could the manager of public works get us this? No, it's a money thing. You go to the money person. And if they need to loop those people in, they will. So then you have a consistent approach, and that avoids this kind of problem from manifesting again in the future.
Glad you came on board and you did come. Thank you for all the work.
Okay, Joel, thank you for coming on and getting the mix up straightened out, I guess that's what you call it. I've been saying that for years, and but a lot of times what happens is with council here, the CEO will come and give us a presentation, and I'm just using this for an example. If we're buying a new truck and we ask where's the money come from, well, there's lots of money here and there, but there's nothing ever gone to the treasurer or anything else, because I know I've had many sit down with Shelley, the CEO, and after the council has approved it from the CEO saying there's lots of money out there, where's this money coming from? So I'm glad that we're working it that way, because the CEO has to work with the treasurer and the manager has to work with the CEO and the treasurer, and then the treasurer should be the one to bring us the stuff forward, whether we buy it or not, or whether we can afford it or not. And I think that's something that council, with the new council come up and have to make sure that don't take the information from a manager or from a CEO when it's down to the treasurer. So I think we're on the right track to get a lot of this cleared up, and I've mentioned that here a lot of times. Where's the money come from? And we get an answer and then find out after when I'm looking at the variance report, or if I'm done with the treasurer well, there was no money for it, you know? So I think we'll eliminate a lot of this stuff, so thank you.
Yeah, it definitely is like a multi-pronged approach. So if we're looking at buying like a fire truck, obviously you're gonna involve the fire chief, of course. And then the CEO strategically would say, like, when should we buy that fire truck? But then also the treasury needs to be involved and say, can we afford it? What's the impact? So all three heads gotta come together, but it's that council needs to always adopt that mindset of if there's a number of financial implication, we need to be getting that information from the treasurer and not to the CEO saying, yeah, we've got money. Really? So I think the better approach there is council saying, we love what you pitched, whether it's the fire chief or public works manager or the CEO, we love what you're pitching. Council directs staff through the treasurer to bring back a report showing the short and long-term cost implications of this decision. Right? Is there a one-time cost? Are there perpetual costs? You buy a vehicle, there's a one-time cost, but then you've got perpetual costs of gas, maintenance, etc. So what are the one-time costs? What are the perpetual costs? Is there a revenue that's offsetting part of this? Rather than council saying, we love your idea, Mr. CEO. We love your idea, Mr. Fire Chief. Approved. We love your idea, subject to what are the financial implications. So then the treasurer can come back and say, yeah, we could do this, but to cover this, you need a 1% tax hike next year to cover this cost. Are you okay with that? Okay, we see the 1% tax hike. Yes, we're okay with that, and we're aware of the impact. Go ahead. Right? I think that's the issue. Sometimes the previous CEOs, someone would just say, yeah, there's money, we're good, it's all covered, and wouldn't actually show you the full comprehensive impact of the decision and how it bears into all the cumulative decisions we're making. As long as council has that mindset saying, we'll approve the decision, but we need some financial clear answers from the treasurer to inform the decision, then this stuff can totally be avoided in the future. Yeah. Okay, I think Tiffany, if you want to take back over, go ahead there.
Okay, perfect. All right, everyone. So I think, now that we've discussed really that the major, the major finding that we had with respect to the work that we completed, I'd like us to move into talking about the numbers for the year, because I do think a lot of you are, mentioning some comments of, do we have the money for this and do we have the money for that? And actually, if I could kind of sum it up in a nutshell, 2024 was actually quite a positive year for the town. And you'll see this when we go through kind of the reconciliation of the operating surplus in the year, so you can see where things ended up. So I'd like everybody to flip to page 24 on the bottom right-hand corner, which is where the auditor's report starts. So we'll just look at that for a quick second. So I know it might look a bit small on the screen that you have. Of course, the town, being a municipality located in Ontario, would follow the public sector accounting standards. You'll notice in the opinion paragraph, which is the first paragraph in the top part of the opinion, indicates that the statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with the public sector accounting standards. So it's a standard non-qualified opinion. It's what you would expect. Audits are the highest level of assurance that anybody can get in Canada. So as a result, this should make you feel good that you were able to have that clean opinion. The statements are dated as of today's date, assuming that ultimately council will approve them. So one thing just to note, of course, is it's always interesting as auditors. So one of the things that we do have to do is we are responsible for updating subsequent events all the way up to today's date. So even though it's a December 2024 year end, it's still our responsibility to go through council meeting minutes in 2025 and make sure that we send out legal letters as of today's, with responses closer to today, because we ultimately need to ensure that as of the date of our audit report, there aren't any concerns with respect to, the town's ability to continue as a going concern, or if the town had made a big decision, well, I'll use an extreme example, like a big decision to amalgamate with some other, municipality or things like that. So we do always have to make sure that we've considered those things. So that's why today's date is important, just to highlight. We have the rep letter, which ultimately Joel did end up signing. We had a little bit of back and forth on it because I did understand in his shoes, maybe he might not be overly comfortable. He wasn't in the role for the entire time. I think ultimately, he was comfortable in signing the letter. So while in the presentation you do see Shelley's name, it was signed by Joel. Okay, so let's get to the fun stuff. We'll talk about the numbers a little bit. So reminder that we're looking at the 2024 balance sheet. So these are assets that are owned by the town, liabilities that are owed as of that date. So things like timing of payments to suppliers or submissions of claims for those capital projects can very much impact where you're seeing your financial results from a cash flow perspective looking on this sheet here. So you can see the total financial assets were up to just under 11 million as of the end of the year. And you can see that just right here, kind of at the top. That's primarily driven by the increase in your cash and cash equivalents as of the end of December. You did have certain decreases in your grants receivable that were outstanding at the end of 2023. So when a grant comes in, it goes into your bank account. So that's obviously part of the reason for there being a bit of an increase in your cash balance. You did have positive cash flow from operating activities. That cash flow was used to pay down some of your municipal debt that you had, and also, of course, to invest in your capital program in the year. Taxes receivable is the second line down. That has increased to just over 800,000 as of the end of the year. It has increased. There was a further increase in the allowance, but just pause for a second. We'll go and take a look at what that looks like in just a second, because I always like to talk about the aging and how that relates to your tax levies. Grants receivable is down. You can see that right here. It's down to 1.3 million. There was ICIP grants that were outstanding also in 2023. And given that there was a bit more capital work that was done in the 2023 year end, that grant receivable was higher. But just, I think this is why it was so important to talk through what was sitting in grants receivable and kind of what the right number was. We're talking about a $1.3 million balance of grants that were outstanding to the town at the end of 2024. So again, positive that you have an $8 million cash balance to be able to weather those delays of waiting for those claims to come in. But I mean, that's quite a large number for a municipality of your size, at least in my experience, to be seeing that amount that's outstanding. Your other accounts receivable is down to about 816,000. It includes a number of items, one of which is your HST rebate receivable. And of course, whenever you're having a few years of some larger capital projects, you're going to have a larger HST rebate, which is going to be outstanding at the end of the year. That was down a little bit, and that decrease was offset by a bit of an increase in your trade accounts receivable. So miscellaneous, non-tax, non-grant receivables. What we see here on the next page, page 31, is just a bit of an analysis on your tax receivable. I know there's a few familiar faces on council, and you likely always hear me talk about that. You'll remember I do always really zero in and focus on the taxes receivable as a percentage of your tax levy. It's a higher number than I would say I would, probably like to see when you're over 30% of your tax levy being held up in your receivables after $1 million allowance. That just tells me we've slowed on pushing on some of the cash collections. I think this needs to be a continued focus for the town, mainly because you can see that where things have really jumped is in that 3-year arrears. Kind of think of it as any amount owing from a customer. The longer that it goes out, the less likely it's going to be to collect. So yes, you see a decrease in your current taxes receivable, but really a good thing to be focusing on even payment plans or some other ways to get some funds from some of the taxes receivable. So really like to see that trending down at least under 30%. I think in my experience in working with the town, that's probably the highest I've seen it over the last number of years. And again, I get it. When you have, certain vacant positions for a period of time, when people are stretched very thin, this probably isn't going to be the area of focus because it does take some additional time in the day. But I did just want to highlight that's should be an area of focus in the current year. Moving over to your financial liabilities, so that has increased a bit to 5.6 million at the end of 2024. So you can see that on a total basis, your accounts payable has increased. Has increased to about 943,000. I would say that there were some additional amounts owing for capital projects as of the end of the year, and that was the main driver. Deferred revenue. So deferred revenue is up. I always like to remind council, deferred revenue means that the funder has provided you those funds. And the reason I say that is one little check I always recommend that council members go and do is it's very helpful to go and say what's in your cash and cash equivalents balance. Because ultimately, as council, you make decisions based on your subsequent year's budget, based on somebody telling you, you know, we have carried over OSIF grants or we have carried over NORDS grants. And what I always want to make sure that you do the little check is to say, if that amount is sitting in deferred revenue, it should still be in your bank account. And you can see that you had just over $8 million of cash and cash equivalents. You have, you know, just over 2 million of deferred revenue. So yes, a good situation to find yourself in, but please always do just look at that check to make sure that you have those funds available. When you're looking at your deferred revenue, there is a lot of stuff that's in it. OSIF primarily, NORDS, winter roads, trails. You did have your airport improvement fees as well, and you take those into income when you're using them for various projects. And so primarily you did have some additional OSIF dollars. The great thing about OSIF, it's allowed to be carried over to the subsequent year if it has not yet been spent. The province just says, you know, any interest that you earn on those funds, park them in deferred revenue and use them for eligible projects as well. Your long-term debt has continued to decrease because you didn't take on any new debt in 2024. So nice to see that trending downwards, now under $1 million at 877. Your asset retirement obligation, you'll remember that was adopted in 2023. That's a combination of the remediation that will be required, remediation and monitoring that would be required for your landfill post when you close it. And then you also have some retirement obligations associated with your buildings. Think of that as some of your buildings are a bit older. They do have some hazardous materials like asbestos included in them. And as a result, you do have to do remediation efforts. You'll remember that in this new standard, it was a bump up of your obligation and a bump up of your asset value. So it was a very balance sheet change in the prior year. Final item in your financial liabilities is your obligatory reserve funds. That's primarily relating to your federal gas tax. It looks and feels like deferred revenue. It's just because those amounts are dictated by the province. There's a requirement to put them in as an obligatory reserve fund. You can see that, again, that's very similar to deferred revenue. The cash would have been received. You can see it's in your bank account, and those amounts are able to be utilized in 2025. Finally, your non-financial assets. You can see overall there was a slight decrease in your tangible capital assets because your amortization was greater than your capital additions in the year by about 500,000, and your prepaid expenses are pretty consistent. So if we go on to the next page, you can see that for the most part, a lot of your spending was relating to your various road projects, which did have your ICIP funding attached to them. There was some additional funds also for playground equipment, water and sanitary system infrastructure, 2 airport vehicles, an off-road vehicle purchase, and then a whole bunch of miscellaneous amounts. Completely appreciate that you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, I don't remember these. Keep in mind, you probably would have approved them in a budget, but probably about 2 years ago. So you're thinking you might be more familiar with what you've done in 2025 or 2026, but this was what you were working on back in 2024. So moving over to your statement of operations, so all your transactions from January 1st of 2024 to December 31st of 2024. So we're going to just go over a few of the highlights. So on a total basis, your total revenue is down by 1.7 million. I throw that number out there, but I want to make sure everybody understands, don't get too hung up on the increases or decreases with respect to revenue. In the public sector world, capital grants need to be parked in your total revenue in the year. And what happened in the year is, if you look at your Canada grants right there, third line down, you can see a pretty significant decrease in your federal grants. And that was because in the prior year, you had a lot of federal grants. You had more spending for ICIP, and the revenue recognition is in line with whatever you spend. The more you spend, the more revenue you get. And you also had some additional FedNor grants. You might remember that you had some for the sweeper, friction tester, the grader. Those were purchased back in 2023. So it was very capital focused, and that's why you're seeing that decrease there noted in the year. Other than that, I mean, your taxation revenue has increased slightly, which you would expect anytime you have a tax rate increase. Even if it's small, you're going to see a bit of a revenue increase there. Your fees and user charges, those are down. Again, if you remember back to 2023, you had a lot of capital work happening at the airport. And to fund some of those capital improvements, there was airport improvement fees, which were taken into income. So the driver of the decrease there of 600,000 is primarily relating to less use of airport improvement fees because you had less capital to fund. We've already talked about the Canada grants. Your Ontario grants, there is a small portion of the provincial portion of the ICIP grant, which did decrease. You did use a bit more OSIF grants, so that was also an offsetting increase there. And then you probably are all aware that you do get that your MMH funding annually. That was up slightly from to 1.67 million, so a slight increase there. Finally, your other income of about 521,000. That's things like interest income earned on your bank account, land sales, that kind of stuff. Given that you have had a significant amount of funds in your bank account, you have been generating some additional interest annually over the last couple of years. Your total expenses are up to about 8.6 million, and this is why I specifically say don't get too far. You know, a normal income statement, we'd all be, oh no, what happened when revenue is down and expenses are up? But in this very weird situation, because we have so many capital grants included there, you'll see in just a few slides how it'll all reconcile out, and there actually was an operating surplus to note in the current year. So your general government expenses are up to $1.2 million. So there were some additional wages and benefits. You did have some additional legal fees also back in 2024. You did have larger tax write-offs though in 2023. So as a result, those two things offset each other. Your protection to persons and property is down just slightly. Lower training and equipment costs noted in 2024. Your transportation services other, so that is up because you've been doing so much road work over 2023, 2024. When those roads are put into use, it does result in additional amortization expense of those assets. So as a result, you are going to be seeing an increase there. Your transportation services for your airport are up as well. Similar idea, you did a lot of capital work at the airport in 2023, which resulted in additional amortization expense there. Environmental services is up to 2.7 million. Certain contract related costs that are operating in nature, maintenance related costs, and increased insurance. And then finally, health services is up because of some additional infrastructure costs that were upgraded. Recreation and cultural expenses are pretty comparable year over year, and planning and development has decreased because there was some reduced economic development costs noted in 2024. So all of this to say, what I want to do next is just talk about your actual surplus is in 87,000. Let's go and reconcile that out to see where you actually ended up in the year. And actually quite a bit different. So we start with the $87,000 surplus per the statement. And then what we do is we adjust anything capital in nature because we have amortization expense, we have capital purchases, which are funded by grants. So we need to reconcile the two of those out. You then use your revenues to pay for your long-term debt, principal repayments in the year. And you also, in the current year, you typically will have some transfers from reserve to reserve or from reserve. And then you do have to adjust out for any of your accretion adjustments for your asset retirement obligations because those are non-cash items. So ultimately, the $87,000 surplus actually turns into a $746,000 operating surplus in the current year. And so quite a bit different when you reconcile through all of the capital transactions. Where that sits, as you can see right here, your operations line of the town, you can see you have an increase in your unrestricted operating surplus up to $831,000. So some clients that I work with will say, okay, we're going to take that, $740,000 surplus, and we will allocate it out to the various reserves that we're going to use it in on a go-forward basis. Because, the Municipal Act is pretty specific on what you are supposed to do with these surpluses or deficits that you have arising in the year. But I would say all in all, you had a bit of a drawdown in your reserves, but quite a positive increase in your operating surplus in the year. So you have total accumulated surplus that's $37.2 million. Always do keep in mind that unless you start to sell your infrastructure, which I don't think you're going to do, the money that you've spent on your investment in your tangible capital assets, so the $7.8 million for the airport and the $23 million for the town, those are gone. Unless you start to sell a building or other things like that, you're not going to get access to those funds. But what you do have available is your $7.4 million in your reserves and your town operating surplus as well. So maybe I'll pause there. It's been a lot of numbers. Joel, please jump in if there's anything you want to clarify as well. And of course, any questions from council.
No, it's a lot to digest, obviously, for council, but nothing to add to what you said so far. No. Can't hear you, sir.
Questions at this time?
Sorry, can you say no questions at this time?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so on my side, honestly, I wasn't going to propose to go through the statements or the notes in detail. I mean, I think you've all had them in your package. I think we've went through all of the items of critical importance. That said, if you looked through anything in your review in advance of the meeting and there's anything you'd like to ask me about the notes or anything like that, I'm happy to do so. At this time, maybe I'll stop sharing my screen, and then if there's a specific question on a page of the statements, I'll go there if you like.
That microphone is not cooperating tonight for you, sir.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Immediately after you say, "Can I hear you now?" I can't hear anything after that. I'm sorry, sir. I will reiterate, Bobbin is looking into some other options for microphones, and she's been back and forth with some companies who are waiting for responses to improve the microphones in town council there.
Says there's no questions
Thank you, Bob, and I got you there.
anywhere. All right.
All right, I don't think anybody has any questions. Carmen, any questions?
No.
Diane?
No question.
No.
Stephen?
No question.
There's no questions here.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Tiffany. It was very easy to follow. Appreciate that immensely.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. And Joel, I'll get those final statements sent over to you this evening.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so we will move on.
This is for briefing notes for MRHHA, Resolution 2026, number 2026-183. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee declines the funding request from MRHHA and the amount of 20 grand and direct town staff to utilize the equivalent funding towards tourism initiatives that provides direct, visible, and measurable benefits within the town of Moosonee.
And I have a mover, please. Susan, seconder. Stephen. Moved by Susan Hunter, seconded by Stephen Nackerty. All right, it's up for discussion. Joel, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Could you maybe just give us a little briefing? Because Tara's not here.
Yeah, I did. She did have a conflict, so she couldn't attend. At the last council meeting, perhaps it was the second most recent council meeting, we talked about utilizing the MAT tax funding, which is a tourism driving money, in consultation with the Cochrane District Services Board. And so the thinking there is if we're already doing some tourism driving activities with that entity, we want to continue to give other money to another entity to do other tourism driving things. We kind of have two different tourism agencies working on our behalf. Should we either A, consolidate the money that we're giving to MRHHA and give it to the Cochrane District Services Board, or should we keep the money for ourselves and the town staff manage that? So I think that was a proposal that Tara was coming forward, say let town staff manage that money to do the tourism driving things. We have had a long-standing relationship with MRHHA. We've consistently given them money for a long time, and I think it's up for council to discuss and debate how we gotten good value from that money, and is it worthwhile continuing to give them the 20,000 a year, or should town staff rather control the funds and or combine that with the funds we're already using for the MAT tax? So we have one pot of tourism kind of monies.
Thank you. All right, the floor is open for discussion. We will start with Councillor Hunter.
So my thoughts around it are kind of I'm kind of on the fence. One, because I did look a little bit at the history. Am I talking too fast, Joel?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. And we have been giving them a lot of money, and then I'm like, okay, well, they seem more organized now. They, maybe if we had someone there, we would be able to see the benefit. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking about it is a good opportunity, right, moving forward. My concern is that getting a staff member to do it, like what would that look like, right? Which staff member? I mean, which staff member would do it? What would that entail? Who would be in charge of that? Like, that's a whole other, yeah, so I'm kind of on the fence.
Thank you. All right.
So yeah, I'm kind of torn as well. Although I think, it's about time maybe that we started to really concentrate on our town first, because again, I don't know that we really have anything. We've got, have put together museums, and we've got some partnerships maybe happening, but we're not even organized ourselves. And so it's hard for us to reach out. I think it's hard for us to reach out and work with another partner when we don't really know what we want ourselves. We're just kind of putting money here and there, hoping that they'll include us, which I don't think is such a good idea. I think we need to just sit back, and I know we don't have committees, but if we had a committee, we'd be able to kind of do some, planning short-term and long-term planning and where we want to go and what we want to do is best. Because right now, I don't feel we're just handing out money, whether it's at the Cochrane place or at the Moose River Heritage Shuttle.
Thank you. This evening.
I'm not on board. Continuing with Moose River Heritage, just hadn't been getting our bang for buck.
Any comment?
You know, they came in, I seen part of the presentation, about $240,000, $140 million we've been over the past years. And I look out around and I look at what we have here in Moosonee, and I don't see a whole lot. That's a lot of money. That maybe we could have been rebuilding the Revlon Parish with that money and moving forward. So I think at this point, as much as I think they're doing some good work, they seem to be having a lot of staff and stuff now, but we're just not reaping the benefit here in the town, that the tangible benefit. It's nice to say there's things in progress, but it's been 13 years. That's a long time. So I think we shouldn't contribute, and then I think we look at developing our own stuff. So of course, that vision in place.
Did you hear that, Joel? Okay. There's no further discussion on this. I guess we will vote on it. Okay, all in favor of not supplying the 20,000. What this motion reads.
Say it again, sorry.
Okay. The corporation, town of Moosonee declined the funding request from Moose River Heritage and Hospitality Association in the amount of $20,000 to direct the town staff to utilize the equivalent funding toward tourism incentives that provide direct visibility and measurable benefits within the town of Moosonee. So you're voting on not supplying the 20,000. So.
And Mr. Mayor, if I
Alright.
can just jump in, there was one question
Yeah.
was raised about if we don't fund MRHHA, which staff member would be responsible for this? It's directly in Tara's job description that she would work with things that promote community well-being, events, activities, recreation programming, social economic development, developing spaces, engage in the community. All those key buzzwords are directly in her job description. So this would fall under her oversight then to say, how do we utilize the funds? And maybe part of that's directing it directly with the Cochrane District Area Services Board. They're already doing the MATTEX funding, but it would fall to Tara's oversight, just to answer that question.
I have a question, maybe, sorry, I know the discussion is over, but if my memory serves me correct, that $20,000 was initial part of a grant we got. And we chose to use that grant to spend the money through that organization. When the grant went out, we came up with the other 20,000 out of our own operational budget. So I'm assuming then we're going to just maintain that level and that budget's within recreation.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So in the operating budget I presented to the council already, I've already had the 20,000 earmarked in there to continue having that amount available to spend as part of our operating budget. It's just a matter of what entity would do the spending. So now we're saying take the 20,000 instead of having MRHHH do spending, have town staff direct the spending of that same 20,000 amount.
Something I want to add, so with the recommendation and the motion, can we just, I'd like to just drop that whole bottom part about directing town staff. I think we should have directing the manager of whatever that's called, infrastructure, whatever it is, right, wellness, and to have that more so than layout, including visitors, wayfinding signage and all that. And let them come back and bring to us what it is that they are planning to do for the tourism part.
Do you want to take out direct town staff?
Staff,
And
yeah,
replace it with
Yeah, just for the
the
specific.
manager.
yeah.
Yeah, so she's a manager, it's a long title, but manager of community development, wellness, and civic engagement. It's a long title. Manager of community development, wellness, and civic engagement.
Just make it CDWCE because it's a very long,
Yeah,
community development wellness civic
Yeah.
engagement.
Yeah, you could just acronym it MCDWCE.
So just manager of WCE.
resolution will be resolved that the council corporation town of Moosonee declines the funding request from MRHHA in the amount of $20,000 and directs the manager of CDWCE, okay, to utilize the equivalent funding toward tourism incentives that provide visible and measurable benefits within the town of Moosonee. Everybody ready? All in favor? Let them know that, I guess we will have to let them know that the funding's not available.
Yes, through Tara, I'll make sure that's communicated to them.
Thank you. Next motion, please.
This is the brief promotes for the purchase of bumper tanker. Resolution 2026, number 2026-184, be it resolved that the council of the corporation of the town of Moosonee approves the purchase of 4 Gary Crusader tanker at the cost of 590,595 plus HST for a total purchase price including delivery of 676,412.35 cents. This meets our needs while saving over 100,000 in comparison to option number 1. This will be purchased outright using town reserve, avoiding the financing route will save the town 121,695.97 cents over the 7 years. The next 7 years.
Can I have a move? Carmen, seconder, Sabian. Moved by Carmen Tozer, seconded by Sabian Nakaji. All right, the floor is open for discussion. We had quite a discussion on this last time. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
This is a new vehicle we're taking on payments, is that correct?
Well, there is the option to take on payments. My recommendation at the end of the briefing note is we don't take on the payments. We have the cash on hand to do it. And in my presentation to council, the last 2 meetings, I outlined that we were just going to spend the money to buy the fire truck. Was always the approach in terms of the cash flow. We could take on the payments, but then you run about, I think it's 120,000 in interest costs over the next 7 years. So you save yourself about 100 grand by just paying for it outright right now. And so like that's $100,000. I say we just pay for it and save the interest costs. But there is the option to finance it if council really wants to. My recommendation would not to, just because the money was spent on interest.
We had quite a discussion whether we were going to get an old one, a used one, or a new one. And the council that was here, the 3 of us, discussed with Steve and asked you guys, both Joel and Steve, to go out and come back with a recommendation for the new one for the price. So this is what we have on the table right now. Again, the treasurer says the money is there, making a recommendation. So I need questions from Sabian.
Well, I don't know much about fire trucks except that they put out fires. Can you come back to me?
Okay, I will go to Diane and
So I guess just a couple of questions. So I see in the last minutes, it was approved for 300,000. Is that the used truck that you're talking about?
Jordan improved.
Was it?
No, it wasn't approved. We had brought
Okay.
forward a recommendation last time to say, would council approve just a blanket 300,000 so we could go and buy a used one? And then the decision ultimately council was, no, it's better bang for buck just to buy the new. A lot of the used ones wouldn't even fit our existing buildings. We'd have to acquire additional temporary buildings for them. So council said, deny to that, but go forward and come back with a new purchase. And so that's what Steve's done, come back and give us an A, B, C, 3 options on buying something new.
I guess my other question, which you probably answered, is that we've measured and everything else and it fits in the garage.
Yeah.
I know that's been an issue in the past where, we've gotten equipment that didn't fit. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, Council, right, just a little bit elaborate on that. The last time that 300,000, we would have to put a new building up that wouldn't fit in the garage. That was one of the topics, so.
Well, like I said, we don't have a backup truck. If that one breaks right now, we're out of luck, so I think we need to move on this as fast as we can, and I think it's a good 20-year investment in our community.
Susan?
No, I did have a comment. I did see in here that it's the purchase and the delivery included, right? I think that was something that we went back and forth, making sure that it was all one. So we were clear about what the total cost would be. Yeah, so that was all.
So as per direction of council last meeting, I went back and verified with everybody. The Fort Garry, actually, they had to look into it a bit more. And in looking at it a bit more, it actually, caused the price to drop. They initially, proposed, looking into a bunch of stuff a little bit further. So that allowed for savings. All three of them were delivery to Moosonee, not just Cochrane, so there's no outside cost.
Hey, Sabian, and you? Again, staff for moving forward again, and, we looked at what we thought was the best option, and we all worked together, so. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on, all in favor? Vote carried.
Number 2026-185, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee award the hydrovac services contract to Environmental 360 Solutions at an estimated cost of approximately 58,863 plus HST to be paid out of the 2026 operating budget.
Hello. Diane, you second, by Hunter, second by Diane Ryder. I will turn this over to Nara, just a little bit, update, if that's okay, Joel?
Drawing I would like to show you guys, just to kind of together. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Hey. So we have, I've been trying to come up with a slightly longer term plan for our water systems. So PXP, Brad Gilbert actually did us a favor here and sent us these two drawings. So this is our, so this is our water services. I'll tell you what year they were built. So this is the Bay Road project we did recently. This is green, nice. And then we're doing Wobbin Road here. We did a lot of Ferguson already, up Gardner. And this way, everything else in the town is from like 1968 to 1969. That dates our pipes 5-10 years older than they should be. They gotta be replaced. And then our sewer system is in a similar boat. Stuff a little bit worse, because at some points we did water main work, but not the sewer. This is creating a lot of projects coming up to just redo the water because our pipes are just super old. And then in the same drawing, I also want to show you guys the lift stations. So how gravity sewers work is you get a bunch of houses and all the sewers will drain down to a lift station. And then this lift station will pump it up to a higher elevation, and then the gravity will continue to take it all the way up to the last lift station, which is right here on Lee Crescent. And then that lift station will pump it all the way to the lagoon. And we have a lot of sewer buildup, backups that happen. Residents are constantly getting, backup in their basements, and we're having to go out and fix it. So this is just kind of a rough idea. I could send this drawing to you guys if you like. This is just kind of a rough idea of where we're at. So, again, Bay Road is good. We did a lot of the Ferguson water main, but the sewer still has to be done. And then a lot of the other roads, the pipes are from 1969. They're really old. There's just the soil that we have here just erodes things, and it makes it hard to maintain it properly. So we have a lot of pipe essentially to replace and maintain better. So that's kind of mostly what I wanted to show you guys. I want to show you guys the lift station. There's 9 lift stations in total. So this hydrovac back here. So this hydrovac, mainly we needed to clean the water plant. There's a lot of sand that gets sucked in from the river. It needs to be cleaned out. So the main reason we have that hydrovac is to clean the water treatment plant. And then the 9 lift stations. So a lot of grease, toilet paper, tampons, everything gets stuck up in there. So every couple of years, you gotta go in and basically wash it with a hydrovac and pull things out. And I can't find any record of the last time we did that, either getting the people at the water treatment plant. That's kind of why this came up, is because of a lot of buildup grease that needs to be cleaned up. That's kind of from that.
We have main sewer with other station. We also have storm sewers, not connected to the sewer line. They go right out to the river, basically, from the rainwater and that. They're usually on the corners of the streets, is that correct?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones all over the place, but yeah.
Okay.
They're usually at the corner of the streets, and whenever you're developing an area, you're like, okay, this is where the lift station is gonna be. The hospital is gonna have its own lift station built so that all the gravity will feed it down, and then we'll go to that. And it kind of, if you think about how the winter heating works, this is kind of speak to why we have a lot of sewer issues, is if the ice and snow underground heaves somebody's pipe up, then it's just not at a slope. So it'll just go back into their homes. So a lot of people that have repeat issues is probably something to do with that pipe. But also, we need to kind of do a better job of public works of maintaining the sewer system so that we have a better idea of what's going on. So that drawing is just kind of to show you guys that there's a lot of pipe that's overdue replacement, and the cost to replace pipe has more than doubled since we did Bay Road. This is just kind of like, I guess I'm biased because it's my baby. I'm looking at our system the whole time, but I'm very worried about not being able to replace pipe. Like, it needs to be like almost, if we can, every year, a capital project to replace more and more pipe until we get to a place where our pipe is only like 10 years old. Then we can start to look at other things. But this pipe, like, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a bunch of pumps at the water treatment plant, right? And they pressurize the system. Right now, we're intentionally running it at half, and we have been for a really long time. Because if we were to run it at the 80 PSI that it needs to be, pipes would just start bursting everywhere. Right? So that when Steve goes to put out a fire, there's a fire hydrant pump at the water treatment plant. It pressurizes it so that the water truck can get the pressure it needs to put out a fire. When that pump goes up, we're probably gonna have a water break. It just pressurizes it. We're just having a lot of issues with the water treatment plant and our system, water system as a whole. And the main focus is fixing all that, but it's kind of a long way of saying we need hydrovacs to clean up an older failing system and maintain it as best as we can, and in the long run, we need to keep planning on replacing as much pipe.
Now, this resolution that we have in front of it, is that just for this, the sanitary sewer, or is that for the storm sewers as well?
The storm sewers are more a want, so basically I'm gonna, because this is an hourly thing, like they budgeted us an hourly thing, I put it in for 2 weeks of work. Once that 2 weeks runs out, we're stopping work, and the lowest priority for us is the storm. At the end of the day, it takes a long time, but we can kind of go in there and shovel it out if we have to. It's not so much as, it's not as bad as, but it's just a lot of work. Like one, it would take a long time for somebody to shovel it out, and where's it end up? So it's easier to have, it's typical for hydrovats to essentially go clean up instead of sending guys into the holes. But the main focus here is the sanitary and the water treatment plant itself. So I'm basically, what did I budget it for is I'm gonna look to cut them off before it goes over the budget, as long as the water treatment plant and all the lift stations are complete. I'm just gonna cut it off before it gets over.
Okay, that sounds good, because I wanted just to make sure that, when we're talking about the sewer line, we're talking about sanitary and storm sewer, which is different, but if the storm sewer blocks, the water's not coming into your house or the sewer system. It's two separate systems, and, the back truck that goes down, we used to do about every 8 years, we bring the back truck in. It cost us major bucks back then to do it, so.
Yeah, they're expensive. Luckily, E360 is in town, and that's kind of why we're jumping at the opportunity. Like the next best bid was way higher. So this is kind of just trying to take advantage while they're in town. Thank you for approval. Should do a what how it went.
I think the great thing preventive, backup to preventive, so that's what I think the water. Carmen, any questions?
No, I think it's great that this is why we've over the past many years, every time we got a chance for funding for upgrades, we've been doing it, but it's getting more and more expensive for sure.
Diane?
No questions other than, again, putting in place policies, procedures so that, if it's every 2 years, then we should be sticking to it. Otherwise, we end up with where we're ending up right now, right? There's, nothing is consistent and, nothing gets done for years and years. So if you have policies in place, hopefully that helps to ensure that, somebody's supposed to do it.
Damien, any questions?
No questions.
Diane, Susan?
No question. I do like your idea though of having a follow-up report right when the work's done. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Nara. I think there's a lot, I call it preventive maintenance, so we, are gonna do, and, it's better for the homeowner. I guess you'll also be, overseeing this whole project, would you?
Yeah. Like guys plan out their hydrovac state, so that they come and we're gonna have one of our guys with them, just to make sure that they do everything the right way. I'm just tracking them, to make sure everything's good.
Okay, thank you. Joel, any questions?
No, Nara, I've gone through it and we've got a plan for where he's gonna, pay for this out of his operating budget for the current year. And it's regular maintenance, we need to get it done, absolutely.
And thank you. Again, this is where the treasurer is working with the manager. This is what we need for the system, so thank you very much. All right, we're ready to vote on it. All in favor? Vote carried. Thanks, Nara. Okay, we'll.
This is briefing notes for a sludge survey. Resolution 2026 number 2026-186. Be it resolved that the council of the corporation of the town of Moosonee award the hydrographic bathymetric and sub-bottom profiling survey contract to Hydra Survey Limited in the amount of 46,295 plus HST to be paid out of the 2027 operating budget.
Now, interrupt here.
Yes.
There was a follow-up by the company that made the bid that I suggested we accept. I initially planned for this to happen next year, because that's just when their availability was, but they said they could probably squeeze this in this year, for a discounted price. So their initial quote was 46,000, and now they're saying they could come this year. We just have to give them an answer, by the end of this week. They can come for 39,000. So there's like around a $6,000 discount. They just have some other municipality up here that they need to do. So they try to bundle it in that it would be cheaper if they come in and do it this year. So it's just a cost reduction, and I think we could fit it into the existing public works / lagoon budget. We kind of split the costs in there. We can fit it in. It's just there's a reduction in the cost, and it could be done this year instead of going to next year from next year's budget.
Okay, we'll, put the motion on play and we'll discuss with Joe on that too. So could I have a mover? Carmen Tegler, Susan, okay, Carmen. So they would want to change this motion to Barclay 20 operation budget, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it would have to come out of this year's budget, but it would be $6,000 cheaper.
Joel, are you on, can you hear us?
Yep.
Have you spoken with Nara about this as well, have you, or?
Yeah, we talked about this initially as planned for next year's operating budget, but if we can get a substantial cost saving like that, I can be on board doing it this year. Either Nara and I will find a way to fit it into the operating budget this year, or if we do a cost overrun on something, then we'll just take it out of his budget next year because we're going to spend it next year. So if one budget line goes over 30,000 this year, then that budget line would become under 30,000 next year to offset it. So I have no problem paying for it now if we're going to get that kind of savings on it.
Another thing is, with our lagoon, we need the studies done and that to do with the hospital as well. So the sooner we get more study done, I think the better it's gonna be. All right, any questions from, Sabian?
No question.
Okay, so I'll change that to the 2026. Okay, Susan? Diane?
What is this being done for? Is to what?
So, in the lagoon, all the waste is pumped into the lagoon from the lift station. And it's just, there's solids in there and there's liquids. And then we flush it out into the river. We try to go for twice a year, sometimes it's 3 or 4. And, basically there's a lot of the solids that just kind of stay in those 2 lagoon bays. So these guys come out on a little boat and then they do like the radar survey. And then they'll tell us, okay, you have this many tons of sludge that needs to be pumped out. So then I'll go to a contractor that can come clean us and they say, how much to remove this much sludge? Ultimately, it's to find out the exact amount of sludge that I need to remove, because it could be, the quote for the contractor could be 100,000, depending on what it is, or it could be 200,000. And how much space we need. So how they would do it is they would come with these giant bags, the size of houses, and then they would just pump all the sludge with some of the water, obviously, from the bottom of the lagoon, and it will just sit there and until all the water runs out of those bags, and then we just excavate those bags and then we take them to the dump.
So they go to the, like.
Yeah, so all the waste will end up at the dump at the end. This just gives us a number of like, this is how much it's gonna cost us to clean in the future, or this is how full they are. At the time, this is how much waste we can take, which gives us valuable information right now, as Wayne would say, particularly because we're building more cells. So it just kind of gives us information that we can use towards build the cells. As unfortunate as it currently is, we don't have any lines or plans for the lagoon cells, which is causing some issues. So this would somewhat help with that. And also mainly just tell us how much lagoon, but how much we have.
That's gonna be a big hill at the dump there, don't play on that one.
Another thing that would have to be done for is because the MECP, we'd have to let them know what day.
Yeah, I'm really working on trying to improve our relationship with the MECP. It's just a lot of ongoing stuff we have to do to get there, but that's just stuff for another meeting. There's a lot to go.
Yeah, because everything has to be permitted and MECP is used to be Ministry of Environment. Okay, so In the resolution that was moved by Carmen, seconded by Susan, be resolved that the Council Corporation Town of Moosonee award a hydrographic, whatever it is, and sub-bottom profiling survey contract to Hydra Survey Limited in the amount of 46,295 plus HST to be paid out of the 26 operating budget. So I need to have a price in there that's not 46,000.
But the revised version here, it's, it's just the underlined, the revision.
That's 39,000.
Yeah.
And that's still 39,000 plus HST right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, no further questions. We'll vote on it. All in favor? I guess we will go to the verbal report from Joe, our acting CMO treasurer. And just before we get on there, Joel, I think some of Diane, Councilor Diane's things too would probably be answered in your report. I think some of them might be touched on. Is that correct?
Some might be, but we have a later on section where I am addressing those specifically as well, piece by piece, just to make sure they're all addressed. So the CEO update, things are starting to settle in better now. A lot of change we've had recently, but for example, Nara and myself both being very new, but now we're both settling into being here just about 3 months now, Nara and I, so we're getting a good sense of where things are at, where the bodies are buried, as it were, and where the numbers are and what's ongoing. So things are starting to come along well. In terms of the CEO hiring, we've been going back and forth, just getting some fine tuning on contracts and whatnot there with the person we're offering it to. And I just got word earlier today that they signed off. I just haven't had it sent back to me yet from the recruitment agencies. I don't have it in hand, but they sent me an email saying, we've got that, we'll scan it and get it over to you. So I hope by tomorrow to have that in hand. And then the plan would be for the new CEO to start August the 10th. So that's just over 2 weeks time from now. We'll have some more discussion with that in closed session and a bit with council, but yeah, so CEO is coming along. Yeah, as Nara mentioned, a couple of just challenges in competing at project we're trying to work on. Obviously, the big project is the hospital project, just trying to keep everything moving there. A lot of ongoing conversations with Waha. Things are moving well, but it's just a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, we've ironed out good communication process with them. Some of the emails were going disjointed. Maybe one email would go to me or one email would go to the mayor. So kind of I had a good communication protocol with them, make sure everyone's informed who needs to be informed of decisions back and forth with Waha. So that's the update of the CEO on Waha. I know NAR's been working really hard on dust control. That also comes up this time of year. And because of the pressure in the lines and things like that, trying to work around that. So NAR's been pulling some water from a secondary source and going out and hitting the roads with that. Can speak maybe more specifically if council have questions in terms of what roads is going on and what the routes are and when they're doing that. But I know he's been working on that very much as well. Fire truck coming along, which is great because we need that backup fire truck, which is pretty critical for the town. Yeah, some major things. There's some additional funding that's out there right now. There's a really big grant that's available. So we've applied for some funding to see if we can get some approvals. Just because there's a bit of if you apply quicker than everybody else, you might get in for this year. So we've done some work with some wastewater grants we're applying for, and also some renovations to the arena that we're also applying for. So fingers crossed, we get some funding approvals, and then we can come back to council and say, hey, this is the funding that's available to us. How much are we willing to take out on a loan, or how much are we willing to pull from reserves to utilize this funding that's available? But no point coming to you if I don't even have the funding approved. So we're swinging for some fundings there. 2024 audits caught up. Already have a schedule planned with her to work on the 2025 audit in the month of October. So hopefully by the end of this year, we will be caught back up to where we should be, and then continue our regular audit, which we March of every year. So getting the audits caught up. And then of course that as the CAO, I can say that new treasurer hired, he's fantastic. So as a CEO, my independent, unbiased opinion, new treasurer, he's wonderful. A funny guy too. So that's my update for CEO at this point.
Interesting, you meant dust control. This is sad. My brother was in town today and I was driving him back and he drives that Otter Rapids to Fraserville Road lots. And it's all gravel, very fine dust. He says, they put something on that road that's almost like a liquid, he says. The First Nations forestry group out of, Kapuskasing does that contract. And he said, whatever they put on it, there's no dust. Says, it works crazy. You know, don't have to apply it very often either, I don't think. So anyway, just an aside, but other than that,
I'm gonna speak to that. I've been looking into, so right now what we use is calcium chloride. So what it does is it, makes the dirt retain moisture better, essentially. But once it's dried out, it doesn't do so well. And it needs to, calcium chloride really needs to seep into the soil for it to be effective for like months on end. So I'm looking at doing an alternative method where we either remove a layer with the grater and then put the calcium chloride down and then put it back so that the calcium chloride is kind of underneath and it can't wash away or dry out as long and the water can be retained better because again, this soil is very, once it gets packed down, very hard and it's not very permeable. So the water can't really seep in there as well. And then what you're talking about is sap. It's like a organic tree sap that you mix in with water. And speaking to Bobby, the old public works manager, we used to do that here. Right now, what's preventing us from doing that here is we don't actually have a water truck. Or we don't have any equipment to spread it. Right now, we use Inlink's water truck. We borrow it for free. And we spread water, but there's like limitations to who's allowed to operate it, what you can, like they would say no to us putting sap in their equipment. It has to kind of be your own equipment to go out and spread that. Another thing is, we have been being a little bit more conservative on the calcium chloride because the price has gone up due to the tariffs. Everything comes from New York. So we use one of those 1-ton bags in a day. That's $1,000. And it'll last a couple of days. So, and then there's also a huge backlog. It's like, you know, you might get a really dusty day one day, and then the next day it's fine. It's because there's like a timing thing of like, is it gonna rain? Please rain, so that we don't have to spend $1,000 on the calcium chloride. If we were to put calcium chloride down so that there's never dust, one, I don't have the staff to do that. So we've been targeting the main roads only. I don't have the equipment to do that. It's long-term planning. It would be better to try to go back to the sap, but first I'm going to try the layered version. It's just a matter of getting the staff. How are we going to do that? How are we going to grade and then have 3 trucks pass each other? How's traffic going to work in the time of that? So I'm just something I'm working on. I'm just getting quotes, trying to see how much it would cost to go back to the sap.
We did have one issue with the sap. Now I don't know, a lot of time I think Cabe was actually here when it was put on.
Yeah.
It got into the storm sewers and got into the river and we got into some big trouble with local as well as with the, I understand the ministry.
So that sap that I'm talking about is food grade.
Okay.
There's no issues with it, so maybe there was something else that we were using.
I think it was something a bit more.
It was like sticking to the trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Stick into the.
Like byproduct of the mills, I think.
Yeah, this sap, like if you drive on the road after we apply it, you should be able to just wipe it off.
Okay.
It won't like stick to things. It's environmental friendly. It's actually better than calcium chloride for the environment.
Yeah, we had to push all the storm sewers out, the river, the boats, the vehicles, and logs or whatever else, so.
Yeah, do you remember when this was? Because if we can follow a purchase order of what material that was, maybe I'm wrong and it's the sap.
Check with Cabe, he was the one that was, I think it was last year or something, I remember there was a real issue on it, so it came up, I don't like that, I don't know if it's the same stuff.
Sometimes when coffee was
Yeah, so we're still talking about the dust control, so I think, there's been noted that the dust has been really bad in town through this year, through the summer. And knowing what you're saying about, not proper equipment and not having, or the calcium being so expensive, but also, a backlog and stuff on it. I think that's where, again, if we're doing planning as a town, which we haven't done, internally especially, and every year, we've asked for it, but it never happened, where we actually do and are participating in the operating plan, where we can kind of say, okay, these are everything that we need to do, but where's our priorities in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? We don't know. It's like, we still don't know, right? It's one of those, we just kind of guess as we go along. And I think because of that, part of the presentation that Joel did with, stuff that we need that's coming up and budgets and everything, it's just that we just fly by the seat of our pants. That's all we've been doing. And I think it's time that we start to organize and to plan. Because again, this dust control and controlling the dust is important in our town. I mean, like it really is. It's got to be a priority at some point. And how do we get to that? And yes, we need equipment and everything, but I mean, if we never plan for it, it'll never happen. But you've got to plan, you've got to talk, and if you don't do that, then you never get there, right? And so do we live the next 20 years in this town talking about dust control, whether it's calcium, whether it's SAF, whether it's whatever, we've got to stop doing that stuff. So that's, again, with dust control on there, and hopefully with the newest CAO and, going forward and knowing what we know about the budgets and stuff, that we actually have some planning happening. Because we haven't had it. I've been here for 4 years and I haven't seen a plan yet. So yeah, I think planning definitely needs to be a top priority on our list. So yeah, so understanding the dust control right now, and we're using water and not calcium, or very little calcium, and you can see why our roads and why the people have noticed the difference this year in the community, is because, again, we're using more water than we're probably using calcium. And water just dries out as fast as, well, you can see our roads. They could rain right now and it'll be dry in an hour, be dust in an hour, so. But at least we have an update of what is happening this year and why we're seeing so much dust. Not that it's a solution, but I think the solution is we have to plan.
We can also see increased traffic.
Increased traffic too, yeah, like all the construction and stuff going on, there's a big increase in traffic, and I'm not sure, I came from the airport today, and the airport road from the bridge to the airport is really bad. So I don't know if that's still the town does that or if the airport does that, but that's really bad. Somebody's gonna get killed with dust that thick.
I can add a little bit to it. Again, you have to be careful when you're putting calcium near an airport, because it can go out and affect the plane, so I'm not sure on that. Okay, I know there was a thing there that falls under the transportation, get out onto the airport, and salt can be mixed with aircraft. So I know there might be something there too, but I guess we can look into that.
But at least, yeah, if they can at least get some water or something on that road, because it's bad. It's bad. You can't even see the next vehicle coming behind. Anybody walking, forget it. You're gonna hit them.
One thing, Mr. Mayor, one thing to add on there to Councilor Ryder's comments about the planning. That is one thing that Nara and I are working on, is just developing a capital replacement plan for all of our vehicles. And when I say vehicles, I mean graders, lawnmowers, trucks, fire trucks, every type of drivable machinery type thing. And what things do we not own that we need to add on to that? So that's something Nara and I are working on, hopefully to complete by the end of 2026. To say, okay, here's the things we plan to spend. We have so much in the budget. It's a couple $100,000 for like capital replacement things each year. Okay, and then over the next 5-10 years, here's what we're going to replace and when. And then we can prioritize what's the most important thing to get, either buying something new or replacing the way it's aging. And then we know when we're looking at something, hey, I'm replacing that vehicle in 2 more years. okay, just put some duct tape on it, keep it going. Don't invest a lot of money in that truck because we're replacing that truck in 2 years. That truck we're replacing 10 years. Okay, then we need to put more money to keep it going because we have to have it last longer. So we can kind of strategize and prioritize how we're spending our money. So Nara and I are kind of working at just say, what do we first of all, what do we own? What conditions it in? What do we not own that we're borrowing that we need? And then get a pricing for all those things, kind of map out a new 5-10 year capital replacement plan for the town.
No, I didn't have to hear actually answer my question because I was gonna ask about the dust, because I sent an email today asking about dust. What was gonna happen with the dust, and then, Joe was really quick at getting back to me, and then it's good to hear the explanation, because when people ask, right, if they say like, now I have an answer for them, I'll be like, actually, you know, this is what's going on behind the scenes, right, have a little bit more, able to have conversation and explain. But no, I don't really have any questions. It was, I wanted to know about the airport, right? Cause today too, from the airport to the bridge, like that was like dangerous. Like people, you couldn't even see the car. So I was wondering like who does that side, you know, and the airport road was pretty, like, people complain about the dust, but they won't slow down. They just zoom and it's kind of dangerous. But yeah, I was wondering about that too, just not really necessary to answer it right now, but I was just wondering about that.
I'm really hoping to have like a proper plan in place of like, these are the roads we do, this many kilometers, this is the method, these are the equipment we need, this is how much it's gonna cost a year. It's just gonna take me this summer to do that. And then next summer, really, hopefully next spring early, I can come in and say, this is what I need to do the dust control, and this is what it's gonna cost if you guys want this much coverage versus this much coverage. And it's just the kind of a trial of method, because the staff actually have to learn the proper method of applying it as well, so that it doesn't wash away as quick, so it lasts a little longer. But there's gonna be some play even next year to figure out, do we go the SAP route, or do we just stick with calcium chloride and just change our method? It might be, a lot of the dust, I've gotten the dust complaints, people call me, it's in the morning. So it was wet, everything was good, and then in the morning, it kind of just, by morning, it dries out. And then everybody's going out, going to everywhere before my staff has a chance to actually go onto the road and actually walk on the road. So it might be a night work if we can get it down to, you know, one application lasts a month. If we go out one night a month, that's not that bad. Everything is applied, it's soaked, it's ready to go for the morning. People wake up, no dust. Then again, when it starts to wear off a little bit, we notice a little bit more dust, and again, we go back. We do it. It's just the fact that we don't really have a good count of how many square meters am I treating? How much material does that take? How long does it take? It's not broken down to the science, and we just need a better plan, so.
Is that calcium liquid?
No, it's a powder, so you
Oh
know
my
that,
God, I don't ever see that white powder though, or that white, whatever it is.
yeah, so
Because
then,
usually they water it at the same time, don't they?
yeah, they'll spread the salt will come in, and then they'll just water it right after. So they'll spread it, put the salt trigger, and then they'll go. So
the packer used to roll behind the bucket.
yeah, that would probably help. The thing is, we just don't have a packer,
Yeah.
and we don't have a water truck, so it's like, we're kind of limited to working with InLink, or like, we borrow your truck, are you mad at us? Are you gonna lend it to us? You know, and they've been really good for that, to their credit, so it's just, that's just the issue, and also just licenses. We're gonna get my staff, you know, key that licenses so they can drive bigger trucks. Sending their applications on file, that's correct. That was.
Xavier?
Question on mine.
Okay, again, like you and I had to talk yesterday, I went down this morning today and, Will was, loading the spreader, you know what I mean? So as long as we as council have the same information, get the same message out to the public, we are working on it. Another thing we've got to take into consideration again is staffing. If staff is off or staff is sick, or you gotta prioritize what we gotta do. So sometimes it will take a little longer than normal, but we've got to take that into consideration. And like I said, I know I had people bang at the door yesterday calling and even this morning, but I had an answer for them. So long as we're on the same staff, and you're saying that it's being taken place, but there is these, issues that we have to deal with.
Yeah, the Ron being on vacation and then two brothers on my staff, death in the family. Were like, it kind of slowed me down. I was down to just 3 people basically. That during this month for the most part, so that kind of slowed things up. And then the fresh water pump at the water treatment plant breaking down. Basically, people, load up their water trucks at the hydrant. But because that broke down, there was a reserve, we have a water reserve at the water treatment plant, the reserve went to half. So that 1 or 2 days where there was no dust control was because I decided to shut off the hydrants so that we don't run out of water. So then now we're pumping it out of the river, and I'm thinking of trying to make this a permanent thing of, we don't need fresh water to water the roads. It's just a little bit of friction there from one of the contractors with the porta potties, but I'm kind of of the mind that, like, drinking water is a little bit more important, as long as we can just pump water out of the river. Takes a little bit longer to go through the river.
Again, another thing, council, is we're getting the right people in the right places. They're all working together. They've got the knowledge, the education to help us. So, again, yes, I like to keep it local, everything else, but sometimes we don't have the proper people to work this way. So that's why I think we will see this in the future with our treasurer, our public works manager, and our CAO. So, I think things will only improve. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, we will move on then. Writing, petition, correspondence, none, motions. The operating budget. Joel, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The operating budget, you have the floor.
Excellent.
Oh, we have a motion, oh, yeah, sorry, we have a motion. And we'll get into discussion.
Resolution 2026 number 2026-187, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee approves a 3% increase to municipal property tax rates and a 3% increase to municipal water service rates as part of the 2026 operating budget, and that staff be directed to prepare necessary implementing bylaws for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Sabian, seconder. By Sabian, Nakaji, second by Carmen Tozer. All right, I know there'll be some discussion. We had some last time, but we wanted the full council here on this. So, I will turn over to Joel with the budget part.
Certainly. Thank you, sir. I'll just share my screen to do the quick walkthrough. We've done this in detail at the last 2 council meetings, so I'm not going to spend 40 minutes walking through it, but just at a quick high level for those who weren't here and for those who were, just to refresh everyone's memories. As of, there we are. Let's go down here. As of the end of 2025, we have about $9.6 million in the bank. We have some large receivables we are waiting to get collected on, and they've now pretty much all been collected on. So we have about just over $11 million in the bank, but we've already committed to things like buying a fire truck. We have some building permits money that we've received already. We have some grants programs that we're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So all the things we've already committed to doing, when we do all those things, the triplex, for example, we're going to be down to about $500,000 in our bank. But as the auditor talked about this in the presentation earlier, there's funding you can get back from the government. So when we apply for all that funding, get it all back, our bank balance will be just about 4.7 million. From a cash flow operating standpoint, we should have $2 million in the bank at all times. $1 million for us, $1 million for the airport. So there's never a timing issue of, hey, I need to buy a pump. Well, have people paid their tax bills yet? I can't afford to buy that pump. You don't want to run that problem. You can't operate that. So MMH would say you need $2 million in the bank, which means we've got 2.7 sort of slush extra money to have play with. As it stands right now, our current operating budget, we're overspending over our revenues by about $600,000. So if we did no tax hike whatsoever, no water hike whatsoever, the town would run out of money in 4.5 years. And that's the analysis we walked through last time, where the dynamic model I built there kind of walked us through and said, yeah, 4.5 years, we run out of money. And I think actually I put it, yeah, I don't know, let's do on. Yes, here we are. June 29th, 2030, we run out of money. So we need to look at tax rate hikes and water rate hikes. In the last 8 years, we have done 7 years of 0% tax hikes and one time a 2% tax hike. And the last time we raised our water rates was 10 years ago. So, if you as an individual working a job didn't get a pay raise for 10 years, you would leave that employer, right? The reality is your costs have gone up as an individual. Well, as a town, we haven't given ourselves a pay raise because we haven't raised the taxes, we haven't raised the water rates. So that is something that we need to be doing every year. This whole conversation we're having about, we need a plan, let's look at capital stuff, let's look at long-term. Now it's talked about, hey, the dust control, et cetera. We're buying a fire truck, but there's another fire truck we need to buy in so many years. Let's map this all out. We need the funds to do that. And so council has to really accept the mindset that, yeah, 3% tax hike every year is pretty much the norm. If not 4, 5, 6, a 3% tax, a 3% water is the norm. And that's just to cover some basic things, like you're probably gonna get some kind of pay raise to staff. You're probably gonna have some inflationary costs. You're probably gonna have a new program. Where is that funding coming from? So I will always bring council back to this date of the decision you're making is going to spend more money, then this date of us running out of money becomes sooner because you're spending more money, or you're waiving a fee for someone to use a gym rental for free, or whatever the case may be, or you're starting a new program. That's what I need council to come back to me and say, we direct the treasurer to give us a fulsome impact of what this decision is. And you say it's going to cost you this much money, and your deadline to when you run out of money is no longer June 2030, it's now March 2030. It's now 2029 to show you that. Or conversely, you're making decisions to save money, to raise taxes, you're pushing it out and you're extending the town's financial viability into the future. So I will always come back to this date to speak to town council and show them what the impact of the decisions are. So with nothing done, we run out of money in 4.5 years. So then we looked at a 3% tax hike and a 3% water hike. And what that meant is instead of having a $600,000 shortfall, we'll have a $480,000 shortfall, 45. Right? So you can see it doesn't address the problem completely, but it gets us in the right direction. It gets in the right direction. New CEO has to come on board and look at what do we do to raise other revenues? What do we do to eliminate other costs? Not a comprehensive review, but as a starting point, we can't pass zero tax and zero water. It's just not viable. Costs are increasing. We need to raise the money. Now, speaking to just Joe, average person, what does this mean to me? I pulled then 3 assessed values and looked at what their taxes were last year and what a 3% tax hike would mean to them. And if your house was assessed at $300,000, 3% more means an extra $17 a month. So essentially one sandwich at Two-Bay once a month is essentially what I'm costing the average taxpayer if you have a house assessed at $300,000. So these aren't major increases to people. They're not paying $1, $2, $3, $500 a month. They're paying $10 to $20 in a month. So it's definitely manageable, and it's definitely not the comprehensive solution, but it's the first right step. So last meeting, council said they agreed on a 3% tax, a 3% water hike, but we need to bring the bylaw forward to council to have it officially rubber stamped and approved, and then I can go ahead and take up the calculations of what that means for each property taxes. That's my 3-minute summary for you on the 2026 budget.
I looked at other communities in the area, Beaver Falls, Cochrane, Smooth Rocks, Kapuskasing. I think we're on par with Cochrane, or way lower than Smooth Rock and lower than Cap. I think Beaver Falls is probably a bit lower than us, but it's as comparable to Cochrane and other communities of that size. So, and price, as you mentioned, price of everything is going up. So I think 3% and a total of 5%, I guess, in the last 10 years is pretty good.
Yeah, Joel's very good at breaking things down and explaining it really clearly. Especially in a form that when somebody asks me a question and I can explain to them why we made the decisions we made. But I don't have any questions, just comments.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
Yes, I have, not really questions, I guess it's my, my thoughts on it. So I'm not in agreement. At this time, I am not in agreement with a tax, increase. And, my only reason is because I think, as a community, we need to see that we're gonna be moving forward and not stay stagnant. And we start to do things that work better for our community. Also for our operations, our administration, whatever we want to call it, that they start stepping up and start running departments the way they should be run. And paying attention to our services here in this town. You know, again, policies, we have policies that don't even get followed. And if they followed policies, maybe we'd be saving a few dollars there. So what I need to look at, or what I need to see, is that, you know, as we are increasing 3 or 5, whatever that increase is, that there's gonna be some savings and there's gonna be some work done on the operating side. Because if they're not gonna change, then why do we keep increasing? They need to change and start saving. And again, I go back to the vehicle policy. That's been a thorn in my side for the last 4 years. We have a policy and we do not enforce it with our staff. Another one is our tendering. We're getting better at our tendering, but there's been a long time where we never tendered anything. Everything was just take the price at whatever it is at the last minute, at the emergency. And so, yeah, we're way overspending. So, you know, as much as I'm saying no to the 3% right now, or 5%, whatever that increase is, I'm not saying definitely, but I need to hear something from the operating side on what they're gonna do to help. Because it can't just fall on the taxpayer, and it can't just fall on the community to pull us out.
Thank you, Councilor Leader. Yeah, I did, listen to what Joel was saying. And it's down, we're $600,000 for budget basically this year. Okay, where are we coming up with that money? We can do one or two things. We can look at raising taxes and doing what we're doing here, or cutting services. Again, 12 years ago, they sold the docks. They were going to close the airport down. They got rid of the family resort center for the same reason. They didn't want to raise taxes or anything. The cost of everything's gone up. And we kept it at a reasonable rate without any increases for over 7 years. I did what Carmen did too before I even, when I knew we were in deficit. I looked at what the other municipalities have been doing for the last 4 years. And the average on the last 4 years has been about from 1.2% to 4% every year for the last 4 years. And we haven't done that. This is the first increase we have. So the cost of fuel has gone up, the cost of chemicals has gone up. The cost of vehicles has gone up, wages have gone up. We can't keep at the same and keep surviving. And like Joel says, if we want to, we can be in the same position that we were 12 years ago, where we end up with no money and about $2 million deficit, and the ministry will pull the $1.5 million that we get special funding. They will pull it back, or they will take and freeze it, where we have to get permission to use it. And some of the councillors that were here when we came on knew that for the first year that was about 1.2, I think, back then. But they froze it. We had to get permission to use that at all. So our budget would even be less by 1.5 million. So I'm sorry, I just gotta bring that forward, and the public, I don't like tax hikes either, because I'm a taxpayer, but something that has to be done. That's my feeling on it, so just wanted to express that. So with that, we will vote on all in favor. Opposed? Carried. This letter again, they're looking for somebody to sit on this, and again, since we didn't have a full council, we wanted to make sure the full council to see who would be interested in sitting on this committee, or if you wanted to sit on it, or what to do for it. So you all have a copy of the letter in front of you. Think you read the motion first, and then we'll get into discussion of who's going to on, okay?
Resolution 2026 number 2026-188, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee appoints blank CEO or acting CEO and blank council or board member as the Town of Moosonee representative on the transition committee established to support the regional transition process, effective immediately for the durations of the committee's mandate.
Can I have a mover? Diane, you second? Susan, after.
What exactly is this?
Joel, do you, have any more information on this at all? Do you
No.
have any more information?
No, the first I learned of it when it was being brought to council that this is a conservation board area thing that we have to have a representative on. I don't have any more insight than what Bob has presented.
Because I know that I think the closest conservation authorities, Matagami River, right? They have one there. I think they do the fire or whatever, water fund level warnings and stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a
And
clue.
how many times do they do?
Right, there's no information, really.
No.
Good.
Explanation of what the expectations are, right? Like, what are you asking?
They're gonna send the committee members down to Barbados for their annual meeting. I know. I would ask them to look into this and find out what exactly it entails.
So, a motion on the floor, so, council, you would like to staff to get more information? And therefore we could table this, is that what I'm hearing from? Joel, could you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Right, because again, this is not really a rush, I don't think. Another thing, I think it would work better because we'll also have the CEO hired by that time. The next. Butler? All right, it's tabled to August the 11th, 26th. So now we will go to the bylaws. We don't have any, is that correct? Okay. I would suggest that maybe
Prefer someone, yeah.
I would suggest that maybe talk with the CEO or acting CEO and he can get you some.
This is just again for the benefit, because so again, so many community members will message or talk about these different items. And I don't have updates, and so I just wanted to bring them forward so that there could be conversation here. Because people are starting to watch our videos now, and which is really good. And I can always refer them to there as well. So just an update on the dog catcher position, where we're at with it, I guess, and it's been a while, I think, since it's been vacant and there is been no posters or anything.
Sure, I can speak to that. So right now with that position vacant, it would fall to the manager. So that would be Steve, who oversees that division. So he's filling that role right now and manages that part of his day-to-day duties. So there, anytime staff have a vacancy, the manager must fill that duties until we can refill that position. We are also just right now, June 1st or July 1st, one of the two, June 1st, July 1st, our 3-year union contract union with the union just came up for renewal. So now we've entered that process of restart negotiations with the union. So any drastic changes to positions we can't do right now, but we can refill existing positions. But I thought it was best, just given the fact that the new CEO is coming on board, that to hold off and do any posting for new roles until the new CEO can come in and say, okay, I need to do a comprehensive review of all the positions we have. What positions do we need to make any changes in job descriptions before trying to fill any other positions? So for right now, we just got to hold on it. Steve's filling the role until such time as the CEO comes on board and can do a comprehensive review of our organizational structure.
Can I touch on that quickly? It's, we should also look at the fact that it's not just animal control, it's animal control and bylaw.
Thank you.
So we need to ensure that, because it is fairly comprehensive and I've been bringing it up and we've been having discussions. In my opinion, we should stop looking at it as an animal control officer. It should be a bylaw officer that does animal control, because animal control does fall under bylaws. So it's, in my opinion, it needs to be looked at that it's a bylaw position, and there's a lot of bylaw pieces that need to be enforced as well. So those are some of the discussions.
So yeah, so again, just longer, we hold off, the worse our problem gets in town, right?
And sort of the problem getting into that is that we also weren't expecting the CEO to be starting this late. So when some of the discussions we had, we thought it was going to be slightly earlier, but with having a date, as Joel mentioned, hopefully that we can progress on that sooner than later.
And then the posters, I see that the posters are out at the airport. Are we getting other posters out into the community on our other department contacts?
Yeah, so that's something we've never had really on the town website or anywhere posted. It is something we could do. We address the airport more individually because we have a lot of transient people who might not like live in the town, might just be traveling from work or just kind of landing in this airport and they're just here, they're in and out. We need to, who do I call? What's going on here? It's after hours. People who live in the town, I assume for the most part would know who our fire chief is, but we could have a contact list somewhere posted and also our website saying, this is our fire chief, this is our public works manager, this is our recreation manager, here's the after hour emergency calls for different services. It's something we've never had. Not against doing it, but we have to get direction from council to say, is that something you want to do? And again, that was something I was kind of holding for the new CEO to say, what's your approach here? Because there's an accessibility for town people we need to provide, also against work-life balance for staff that we need to provide. So I'm hesitant to give every cell phone number up for every manager, knowing that people can call them at 2 a.m. saying, I've got your cell phone. Versus do we just say, here are the emergency contacts. So if there is a fire, here's the emergency hour of fire. If there's a fire hydrant thing, if there's a flood, if there is a evacuation, if there's an airport issue, critical things, here's what you do. Otherwise, you contact info@Moosonee and we can direct your inquiry appropriately. So we have to strike that balance between accessibility for townspeople with privacy and work-life balance for staff and kind of bridging the two from that HR perspective, which is part of the CEO role. So for now, I dealt with the emergency for the airport because there was change with Wasco coming on board this year and a lot of people in and out of the town in that specific role. But I think this discussion we need to have, I think we should really have with the new CEO to say, what's the approach here? What contact information do we want to share and where do we want to share it? Is it on the Facebook group? Is it on website? Is it posted at town hall and other key locations? Yeah.
Yeah, I know we did have a discussion at council, I'm not even sure how long back, with regards to the same thing about posting and how, again, people get a hold, especially in emergencies. There wasn't really, or I don't even know if there's any numbers out now for who's ever on call, if there's an on-call worker. None of that, I don't think is even, when we discussed it at that time, it just wasn't out there any place for people, just a contact number for emergencies even. So that was where that conversation came up, not necessarily just fires, but whatever kind of emergency that might have come up, because I understand, like, we do pay overtime with our staff, so there must be emergencies that come up because the staff go out on overtime, right? So whatever those emergencies are, somewhere, somebody's how does somebody get a hold of them?
And I can touch base on that for my departments, well, not obviously for the fires, but for animal control and whatnot. So back when we had that discussion, I still had an animal control officer at that time. We worked together. They changed the answering service to say that if, you don't hear from me, this is the number you call. I have calls in the past, so that has been established. And again, to touch base, as Joel has mentioned, when it comes right down to it, most of the municipality doesn't have boundaries when it comes to personal life and stuff. And we all know the reality of it. People know how to get a hold of it. They do know, and I've had people reach out to me for what shouldn't be after hour questions. I get them quite often. So I'll get either texts or phone calls. People have a lot of our numbers. They haven't changed in many years. But some of the stuff that we talked about, was at least for my department.
So, yeah, so those are the numbers that I'm, again, as I am messaged or, I can give out a number. I just don't have any numbers of anybody, so
Yeah.
that's what ends up being.
It's probably something, and I haven't seen it in a while, and something that as staff members, I think we could take away. We used to have fairly frequent, I think monthly, it was updated, or if a new staff member came on, we had a staff directory page. At least since I've been back, that hasn't been out. So it might be something to look at to reestablish, so at least staff members are aware, especially with having so many new staff come on board. It might be something that we as staff work together and put together. So
Yeah, I think we need to be transparent in that way, because if we want people to reach out, they need to have a place to reach out to, right?
To add some context for public works emergencies, we have a public works emergency phone they could call. And most of the time we get emergencies, we actually get the call from the water treatment plant saying, hey, there's excess liters of water that are night, just call, we don't want to break. Most of our response to that, but then if there's a broken manhole and someone drives over it, that's one of some of the emergencies that do happen, people do need a number for it.
Where is yours posted?
For us, I don't know where it's posted. Most people just know Ron as the guy, and everybody has Ron's number, and they have the contractors all have an emergency number. We usually give it out to them, but I think the emergency number should be on there. Residents have reached out to me, they do get my number in one way or another. But just generally speaking, just from my experience at other municipalities, there needs to be a screening from resident to manager. It needs to be like, usually most municipalities have like a work order system. You have a complaint, you put it in, it'll go to someone like Sunshine, and then Sunshine will send it to the manager. Just because if somebody has some sort of vendetta against the manager, they can make their life really hard.
Or even online through our
Online,
website.
online.
You go online and you create a request for work. And then it would get filtered, it would get sent to the manager and filtered through. And that's sort of what Joel was mentioning. In my opinion, I agree with them. We should look at having that as be our go-to, and that should be the information that we give to anybody. Somebody says, oh, I need to get a hold of somebody, go to the website. This is where you'll find all the contact information for each.
Yeah, but they should be going to the person on call rather than directly to me or you.
Yeah, and that's where you would get that information, right? So that way they're not calling you saying, where can we get that? And if they do happen to, hopefully down the road, that's where people will learn, okay, I just go to the website, this is where the contact.
And we all know this.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
It's as his worship always says, we need to make sure that the same messaging is going out to the community. So if we establish that, that's where we can start following.
My first thing,
Sorry, go ahead.
I got a call to say I think with backup sewer or something, I can't remember, told me that, there's no number for public works. Okay? So I said, okay, leave it with me. I'll get somebody to get back to you. I went online. I had public works who was on call. I phoned that number, answered right away. They bypassed, and they said they never got a call, so they bypassed to come to me, which is not the right way.
And that's what I mean, that people know, and unfortunately people try to bypass just because we're a small municipality. Everybody knows. So the odds are they're doing it for a reason, but not all. So we just have to try to work towards establishing the same communication to everybody. And hopefully down the road, we won't see an improvement on that or even the relation in that for quite some time. But if we stick to what our wording is and our communication is, that hopefully down the road, it will get to a point where it's better.
comment was I phoned, they had their phone number, I phoned them back. I said, I contacted the call number, it's online. A call number for you. Yeah. I'd never heard back, with the procedures you have to follow.
So is a direction or a suggestion, that council have some kind of a motion or some kind of a, direction to, put this onto the website? Or in a central location, is that what we're?
Yeah, I can take that away for now and just say, at least for now, to address the issue that clearly exists at council and or in the public, working to just get the after hours emergency contact for each department. So if I had a public works issue, if I had a fire issue, if I had a recreation issue, if I had an airport issue, and it's 9 p.m. at night, who do I call? I know the one time when I was in town and our main water guy was on vacation and the new water guy didn't have the after hours number himself. So he called me at 2:30 and he's like, hey, there's a water break in town. I was like, oh, okay, let's go find it. Right. And so now I think he probably had the information and maybe he just forgot it. He was new. But so I don't mind saying I'll reach out to the main department, say, give me an after hour departmental number, post on the town website and post in a couple key locations throughout town. At this point, I'm not comfortable with putting all staff contact information because I worry, like Steve said, people getting calls at 9, 10, 11, 2 in the morning, and even just harassment because I've got your phone number. I can come after you. So if you're on call, there's an on-call number for Public Works. Here's the on-call number. Yes, if you see a pipe burst, you see a fire, who do I call? Go on the website and a couple of key locations throughout town. I think that's a good compromise for now. That kind of addresses the issue. And then when the new CEO comes on board, you can look at, do you want to post all the managers' contact names and numbers and email addresses, or just leave it at the after hours emergency numbers?
Twofold, so one thing, again, what we talked about, we should still have that, bring back that internal, so that anybody that comes on can be given that form, here's everybody's contact number. Again, Veolia, a lot of new people in Veolia, getting them updated on it and saying, okay, we've updated, here's your list. That way, I didn't have Mark's number for the longest time when he came on, because we didn't have a list. So like those little pieces internally and for the public, I think it's something we could look at.
We have a complaints policy too, because if somebody's phoning, I'm going to use Public Works, they don't get an answer on Public Works, then they should be getting hold of the CAO, acting CAO, to let them know they have a problem, and there's a complaint form that we pass it here to. I'm not going to go interfere and say, well, those stupid guys are not answering your phone, or, you know, I don't know, a lot of times maybe they're in the manhole. But I think that we've got to speak with the same and support our staff.
Yeah, so for now, I'm happy to take that away and say, I'll get the after hours emergency contacts. Let's get that on the website. Let's get it posted throughout town. So we can deal with that piece. And then secondarily, the CEO, when he comes on board, can look at, does he want to expand upon it or not? At least we'll have emergency contacts available for people.
And so the Fifth Street and the Ferguson, I know there's been some sewer issues up and down that. Is that part of what you're saying, the shifting of pipes and stuff?
Yeah. So Wayne started the project today. They're actually working on the road right now. So they're gonna work southbound towards Ferguson, and hopefully, once they expose the pipe, I'm always gonna go take a look to see if that's what it was. But ultimately, until they dig up the road and we can see the pipe, we don't know what that was. If that's what it was, then problem solved, great. If that's not what it was, then I'm gonna look at the lift station that the house goes to. And then I'm gonna look the other way up the street from the house to see if there's any excess flow. Just kind of the issue that I'm running into here is I don't have the data I need, and I have to start collecting it now. So that means I can make decisions later. But one of the main things that's stopping me right now is our water meters. I can't get a flow, because typically you can take a percentage off of the water we use to guess what the sewage is, sewage flow. So if I can say, you know, these houses here took this much water in, this much water flow is going to this lift station. This lift station is not big enough to pump all the water out. So we just have to look at it a little bit more numerically. It's just, I don't have that information wasn't collected. It's not there. We have 100 water meters that don't work. 100 people don't pay their bills. So it's like all this it's just like, it's gonna take me, Joel and I were talking about today, it's probably gonna take me a year to fix all the water meters. And that's a whole, there's probably a month or two worth of work to get to that year in the first place. So there's a lot of work that has to be put into place to get there. Yeah, to answer to your question, I'm hoping that fixes it. If not, then I'm gonna look at the lift station pump to see if that's the issue. But ultimately, I just need more information. I can't really put the puzzle together.
So where did they start, on Fifth Street or Ferguson?
Down Bay Road right now, they're working down. Well, not, yeah, so,
Bay Road and Hutch.
Yeah.
yeah. I think the Bay Road is fifth, and then now they're going down to, Hill.
Is there an update on the lighting project that's out of the airport?
Yep, we engaged WSP to run that project, and they were approved to run the project, I think, 3 years ago. But that just never got off the ground. So now we've brought back to council that in the initial phase of looking at that now, WSP said there's some basic fundamental paperwork in terms of the layout of the topography, the layout of the lighting that every airport's supposed to have, and we don't have. And so whether that was never given to us when the federal government gave us the airport, but it was lost over the years, unknown. But WSP said, we're all on board, but we can't start this project without that basic information. So we came to council about a month ago and said, we need some extra funding to get this basic paperwork in place so they can then start the project. We've got the approval for that. They've gone ahead. And the first step really was picking what type of generator we were going to use at the airport. It's kind of A, B, or C versions. And so we went with the B version, kind of the silver middle of the road, as it were. So that's starting now, and that project underway. There'll be a lot of design type engineering drawing stuff this year, and next year will be more of actually putting poles in the ground with actual lights.
So in that interim or in this time right now, we still have our lights are still working and everything out at the airport? Like I know we ran into a year or so back where, again, it was hit or miss whether we were even gonna have lights at night.
Yes, there were some complaints raised, I think by Orange about that, about just lights and the dusk and the dawn type of thing. So we're gonna have to do some repairs to get that up to enough of a code to address that in the interim time, kind of bridge the gap until we are replacing everything. But we're also being mindful of let's not spend too much money to make it too perfect, because we are replacing the whole stuff in short order, but we need to be operational functional for safety's sake in the meantime. So WSP's got some people coming up to do some work to just do some repairs to get it to a consistent functional level at the dusk and dawn time for the problem CBD.
And the compressor at the arena, I know that was an issue, I guess, last fall, winter. Are we set for we have a new compressor and everything?
We don't have a new one yet. The one we've cobbled together and it's working. What we're doing is we've applied for some funding, as I mentioned earlier. There's some big funding. We're applying for wastewater projects, and also for some comprehensive recreation projects. Part of that comprehensive recreation project is basically to fix and repair a whole lot of stuff at the arena. And so whether that's roofing or lighting or whatever it may be, or rink boards and things like the compressor as well, under that whole comprehensive project, to try to get a brand new one. So we've applied for that funding, and we'll cross the fingers to see what the response is. If not, then we need to look at building that into that capital plan that Nara and I are talking about. Say, okay, what are the things we need to replace? What's critical? Something like that is a 2027 replace. It's critical, and other vehicles might bump down a year or two as a result of that. Yeah.
So I know I'm getting questions now, like again, minor hockey, because every year we miss opening the arena in a timely manner. And it's again, whether the compressor or whatever. And so I just want to bring it up early so that we could be on top of it and be able to, hit deadlines that we put, that we say they're going to open or whatever. And we try to hit them this year rather than, because they haven't hit it since I haven't been here for 4 years. So anyway, so that's kind of hoping that we're on track for opening the arena on time this year.
Yeah,
so that's my next one, is just an update again on the installation of the ice this year.
Yeah, so that's definitely on Tara's radar. to make sure that the guy comes up and does the review in September. So we try to go for that week of October 12th, which is kind of our deadline we're trying to aim for, because that coincides with the school break at that time of year. So she said there is a pump repair which is required, and there may be other delays based on wear and tear parts that we have to wait to see if there's an impact when we're looking at it, and if there's any unseasonably warm temperatures in the air that can also delay it. But basically, we're aiming for that week of October 12th. She's aware of this, it's on her radar, and that's the plan we're trying to go for. There can be factors out of our control, but that's what we're aiming.
And then the official plan, I know we have been working, was started and, but I don't know if it's on hold right now or where we're at with it. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, this is one that it's under review. I don't have a lot of information on this. The new CEO is going to have to come in board and take on all this. This is one thing I haven't been able to find a lot of documentation on or information on in terms of going through the records, what I found. And we've got lagoons and we've got Waha, we've got fire trucks, and we've got all kinds of things going on. We've able to find a lot of good records on most stuff, but this official plan, not much, to be honest. So I'll have to connect to the new CEO when he comes on board and say, hey, you need to pick this up and run with this.
Last year when we did the roads, we did a road project of ditching and just putting some capping on in certain areas. And at that time, we were going to also have a stockpile of our own gravel to be able to fix areas as we came upon them or that needed it, the short distances. And so again, just wanting to know if we still have that stockpile and if where it is, I guess. Where is it located?
I can speak to that. So what's left over, from my understanding, is at the scrapyard. And for the most part, most of it has been. From my understanding, most of it has been used, and we're reapplying for that same grant for the same. We created a 5-year plan for road resurfacing for that same grant.
Just an observation when you were doing your presentation, Joel, a couple of weeks or whenever you had done it there, is that when I sat on council some time back, we used to get reports. Council used to get reports on receivables and payables where we're at. And we were always able to identify when payables were out more than 90 days. And which then, kind of alerted us that, something was happening financially. And that without those documents or that information, so I think that's where it leaves us vulnerable as a council, that we don't know what's going on in the financial part of the town. But those would be definitely red flags. I think, if we see the 90 days out and it keeps adding, and I'm just kind of referring back to the I think it was 1.4 million that was, invoices or something that, or that how did that go again, that we hadn't paid out. They hadn't invoiced us and we hadn't paid out. So that money kept looking like it was in our bank, or it was in our bank, but it was to go out, right? But we never got the invoices for it. And I think was a real concern to me to realize that, almost a year and a half or a year later, we're still paying bills that are over a year old, and they result into like $1.4 million. Like, that's serious. So I don't know if that's something that, again, just a discussion for council, or, is that a practice that happens at other municipalities where, we get more financial information than what we're given, which all we're really given in the 4 years I've been here, the only thing I've seen is a year to date. Every quarter, we see a year to date on the operating plan. But again, it doesn't give much information because it's the projection and then where we're at actually. But when you ask about it, it's just always, oh, that's just a projection, it's just estimated even with the actuals, because those, at the end of those years, like since I've been sitting here, every year they have, those year to dates have ended in a surplus of sometimes 1.5 million, sometimes 2 million. And these are, that's what we end with. And so when there's the discussion about raising taxes and you're seeing, surpluses every year happening in the town, that kind of, could be misleading. And it's again, because we don't have accurate data on the financial side. And we can't really follow the financials of, the town when we sometimes don't get documents, that possibly we could be getting.
Yeah, there are definitely a number of thoughts to what you're raising there. There definitely will be a learning curve because of the turnover in staff. And so it is hard when your public works manager, who manages most of the work being done in town, most of the budget is under public works. And then all the dollars under the treasurer, and we're both, looking at 90 days on the job. So it's tough for us to say, like, what is normal in Moosonee for the last 5 years? We weren't here, right? So there definitely will be a learning curve in terms of budget, actual projections. We may be high, we may be low, until Nara and I get a year or two under us and say, okay, now we know what's really going on here. Yeah, that's way too high. That's way too low. We can look at some of the previous budgets in the past, but again, the numbers at least went through so many different hands. It wasn't just consistently, Shelley's phenomenal. Shelley's been here forever, but it wasn't even just consistently in her hands. Sometimes it was this piece is in this person's hand, this piece is in this person's hand. So it wasn't even consistently handled. To look back and say, well, whenever we do this, we always treat it this way, we always put it here. It's kind of varied. So there will be some learning curve for sure. That being said, I will be bringing monthly reports to council for the budget versus actual to show you where we're at. And that's things where council can kind of look at and say, is this a department that only spends its money at one time of the year? So like snowplow removal, that should be pretty much, November, December, January, February, March. It should be snowplow removal in July. So if we get to a certain part of the year, you're like, yeah, there won't be any more expenses now because it's snowplow removal. Or is it a set thing that happens every single month that we know there's gonna be actual? So you kind of look at where we're at depending on the nature of that departmental budget. So I will bring monthly reports to council to give you a line of sight budget actually where we are every month. In addition, I will also be aiming to bring our budget process in February of each year, as opposed to, 3 more days from now, August 1st. We're just 6 months behind where we should be in the actual budget approval process. We had the budget approved earlier. You had, 6 actual versus variance reports throughout the year to give you a sense of how we're doing, what we're tuned into. In terms of AR and AP, yes, I could bring high level things. I'm very hesitant to bring the names of companies and the amounts that they owe, because then you could get into like liability issues and our reputational harm and trade secret sharing and but to say, hey, our AP balance, unpaid AP is uncollected AR is 50,000, 2 million. Whoa, we have a lot of bills uncollected. You guys can see high level. Who is that? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I will deal with the individual people, but you can see if we have uncollected or AP. Do we have a lot of bills we haven't paid? And our cash flow is going to just plummet once we finally pay these bills. AP is at 50,000, 50,000, a million. We got some massive bills coming. That cash in the bank. Whoa, we're going to be drawing that down really fast. So yeah, I can bring that as part of the monthly report and say, here's the outstanding AR, outstanding AP for the town. I will say as well, like the benefit now that council made the decision and to add some new positions, like for example, Shelley's position was a clerk treasurer, and now you have a clerk and a treasurer. So I can dedicate a lot more time than she could previously. And so I think she did a fantastic job. I think part of the reality is that time she should have spent really hammering down those AR, AP, getting after those people, she didn't have time to because you're also doing Boblin's job. I don't have to do Boblin's job. Whatever Boblin's doing tonight with council, not my problem, right? So when she was doing that stuff, then maybe there were some collections that weren't being really chased after. It should have been because she was doing both roles. And then as well, you had a significant 2-year vacancy. Don't forget a no CAO for 2 years, where she kind of wore that hat as well. And I know just from a month and a half of doing the 2 roles, it's a lot. It's a lot to do the 2 roles. Yeah, there's a lot of evenings where I'm working very late at night. So having more staff and a full complement allows us to invest the time to tackle these things, but then comes with a cost because you're paying more wages now to have the staff tackle those things. So you want the information? Yes. You want to be on top of it? Yes. But then you've got to pay the staff, which means ultimately you probably have to raise some taxes to afford the staff, kind of all flows together. But yes, I will bring monthly budget versus actual reports. summaries of AR and AP to council at least once a month. Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you.
He's asking for, the variance reports.
Quarterly variance report?
Yes, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. My aim would be to try to provide them monthly, but quarterly is how we've always done it. And so, but my aim would try to provide this to you guys monthly.
I found them very helpful, in the past, like you said, I predicted at one point about $200,000 deficit this year. That was only partway through the year. So I found it very, very, and when we continue spending and buying and everything, I was kind of worrying about that, but it'd be nice if we could get those.
If I can make a comment on that just for council's sake. Joel and I have had multiple discussions in regards to finance budgets and whatnot. Some very good discussions, and whatnot. So I'm really liking the way we're trending, at this point in time. Again, it's early days, just coming on and whatnot. To his point, yes, the fact that he's just treasurer again allows a focus that as a manager in the past, I always didn't get a chance to see or discussions that we could have in depth. So I'm liking the way we're going currently. And even I feel in a way bad for Joel, but even like manager's sake, even myself, I came in halfway through the year last year. And halfway through the year, my budget that was already spent before I came on 6 months in. So I think a lot of the departments, you're gonna see a lot of differences next year because we're gonna have the ability to see what an actual budget is and having the ability to oversee our budgets. And that's something that we've been discussing, so that way we can properly manage budgets. Spending just to spend is not exactly something that is always great. But working with Joel and Joel being on top of a lot of this expenditures, it is been good, so.
All right, and I guess there's no other, question that we will move into closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you're here, that's right.
What?
That's why I thought I was going whole time, but you're here, I forgot about that. Right, Joel, I'm moving to closed session. I'm going to read the resolution 2026-189. Be resolved that this meeting move in camera at 8:31 p.m. For the purpose pending acquisition and or disposition of land by the municipality, labor relations or employee negotiations. Could I have a mover, please? Susan moves to go into camera. Who's that seconded? Diane seconded. All in favor? You're in camera?
Resolution 2026 number 2026-193. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee approves the recommendation arising from closed session respecting the acting lead hand wage rate and direct staff to implement the approved changes in accordance with council direction.
Diane seconded. Susan? Question? All in favor?
for the triplex. Resolution 2026/194, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee approves the recommendation arising from closed session respecting the proposed lease of the municipal triplex and direct staff to implement council.
Have a word, please. Seconder, Susan. Discussion, if not, all in favor?
Resolution 2026/195, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Moosonee adopt the minutes of the closed session number 10-2026 of June 23rd, 2026 of presented session.
Have a that this meeting adjourn at 9:12 p.m. Have a mover, please. Carmen, seconder. The any discussion on adjourning, if not, all in favor, vote carried. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, everyone.
That's we're not recording anymore.
Because my name is right here.